Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel again. It's a very exciting day because I am joined by Richard Lloyd.
Hello.
Richard Lloyd is one of the best Who-tubers in the scene, and I'm incredibly honored to be joined by him. So thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
We decided that I think the best way to talk about Series 11, because there's a lot of discussion going on right now about how it could have been better and how it could have whatever and all that. I think the best thing to do right now, just for fun, is to just talk about what we liked about it. So we're going to do a top 5 episodes each, and I think that that's a fun thing to do for a discussion.
Yeah,
so, sure. So we're just going to, I think, do you want to just go back and forth, like 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1?
We can do. I've not really got 5 set episodes. I've just got kind of, odd bits here and there. So
that's totally fine.
Yeah, whatever. Really, I don't mind.
I'm gonna let you get started. Whatever you want to talk about first, you go for it.
Yeah.
You're the guest here, so.
I mean, we could just go through the series perhaps and should we pick them out, or I don't know.
Sure.
What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. You do whatever.
Just the best bits, I suppose. Well, let's start with the opener, shall we? The woman who fell to earth, and
absolutely.
Yeah. For me, this is a pretty strong start. I think a solid opening episode. I think in hindsight, looking back, it's even stronger because when I first saw it, I wasn't too sure. But you always have that a bit with first episodes, don't you, for a Doctor or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a weird phase of like you're still getting used to the new format and and everything is.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to go back. I'd love to go back and just watch The Woman Who Fell to Earth and see how I respond to it with a whole season's worth of context.
Yeah,
you know
true,
what I mean? That'd
true.
be interesting.
I just think it gets a lot right. Like from that very first, the very first scene with Ryan and the YouTube video, and then with them up on the hill and the whole bike thing, that just kind of captures the essence of this era for me, and it sets it up really well, I think. And then the whole story as well, how it introduces Jodie and the Sonic and all the new things, new companions, and then with Grace's death as well. And the Doctor's speech about family at the end. I just think it's a really good start to this new era. Yeah.
It is. I think it's my second favorite episode of the season.
Okay.
And I love it because it's probably one of my favorite series openers because I think series openers are for new series. I'm talking. I think they can be hit or miss. I mean, they can be for the classic Who too.
Yeah.
But like you've got New Earth is okay. I think it's got good stuff and bad stuff, and but you've got something like the 11th Hour, which is everyone thinks is great, and I think is great too. It's amazing. I think this kind of hits closer to 11th Hour in terms of series openers. Like it really, there's something cinematic about it, and
the direction
fun about it. You know what I mean?
The look of it, yeah, definitely. I think always when you get a new Doctor debut episode, it's kind of like, is it as good as the old ones? And then I suppose over time, it kind of, you learn to appreciate it a bit more because obviously I think people probably hold the 11th Hour and as one of the best ones, and Rose as well, I guess, in terms of the new series. But I think looking back, people will look at this one as a good one as well. Up there.
There's so many great moments that are just unique to this episode. Like watching the Doctor make her sonic screwdriver is something that is so like I think that's even though people do talk about it, it's kind of underappreciated. Like we got to see the Doctor make a sonic screwdriver. Like that's crazy.
You kind of wonder why they've never done that before. It's just like it's taken 13 Doctors to get there. And holding back the TARDIS as well. That's a genius move. It's all second episode. Just Yeah, brilliant.
That's a good moment. I don't have Ghost Monument on my list of things to talk about, but the end of the Ghost Monument where she sees the TARDIS and she's like up against the door and it opens for her because she lost her key. That moment is so like overwhelming with emotion.
And
I love that.
It really feels earned after those 2 episodes. The Ghost Monument and then the opener as well. It really feels earned getting the TARDIS at the end and that moment at the end, isn't it? Yeah. It's a brilliant moment.
That moment where it shows up on the hologram early on, and she's got this like look on her face, like it's there. Oh man, I remember watching that for the first time. I was in love with that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
I want to talk about I don't think there's too much to say about the Ghost Planet, but Rosa hit home for a lot of people, and I love Rosa. I didn't love it for the same reasons I think that other people loved it. I loved it almost like like a Back to the Future style story where it's not about aliens or space, but it's about like fixing time. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah,
in that
I can appreciate that. I suppose it's the first time we've got the 4 regulars all working together. There's that sense, I think, about halfway through, and it's Operation Rosa Parks, and she's on the whiteboard, the Doctor writing all the stuff, and they're quizzing each other about the historical facts and trying to get time back on track, like you say. There's a great vibe to the episode in that respect. You know, the Rosa Parks stuff is great as well, but as you say, there's definitely an element of that as well, I think, the kind of team working together to get time back on track. Yeah, I love that.
The scene where they're all on the floor in the motel, and like Graham's got the bus schedules, and Yaz is like, okay, she's gonna leave work at this time, and all that stuff is like really, really good.
It is, it is.
I think a lot of people were mixed on the ending with the music,
the song.
If it was, you know, this or that. And I've seen takes on the episode that it could be interpreted as offensive in some ways and things like that. And I didn't feel it was that. I mean, it is groundbreaking. It is important. I don't want to say, I mean, I'm coming from a place of privilege, obviously, but it has important things to say. But I think on a surface level of just like the story, it's a really, really strong episode. I think it's worth delving into those other things, but I also think like on its own, it's worth appreciating it as a really like good episode of Doctor Who. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was the first episode of the season, I think, that felt like, oh, this is Doctor Who again. You know what I mean? Because we've gotten the introductions out of the way.
Like you said, the introductions are out of the way. It's a solid adventure. The regulars all working together, and it's a good story. Like as you say, even without the Rosa stuff, without the politics or whatever, it's got a strong plot behind it, and an okay villain and whatever, and it's a good historical, solid Doctor Who story. I'd say definitely. Yeah.
I quite liked Krasko. I heard people talking about how they did, but I thought, I mean, the performance is okay. I liked more the idea of like, you know, he's got a vortex manipulator, so was he a time agent? And he was in Storm Cage. Like, we get all these callbacks to like Who things from the past few years. I thought that was a really cool way to like tie it into the universe and make it feel cohesive.
Yeah, true.
I just liked it for that.
I mean, he's certainly got a backstory, I suppose, and stuff we don't know about him, and in that respect, it's interesting, I guess, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, he did what he needed to do in the story. I don't think he's as bad as people say he was.
He's one of the villains. People talk about the series a lot and say that the villains were not great, and I think there are some where you could say like I don't know, maybe Chris Noth's character in Arachnids in the UK.
God.
I don't totally jive with, but and even the spiders in that are literally just big spiders. They've got nothing else going on for them.
Yes,
but I think there are villains that are really good. Like I think going back to Woman Who Fell to Earth, I think that Tim Shaw is really like solid. In that episode at least. And yeah, I like Krasko. Can we talk about the Serenga conundrum?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to.
Do you like the Serenga conundrum? I've watched your review, but I can't remember because it was weeks ago. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think at the time I kind of watched it and I thought, yeah, that was okay. And then I opened up Twitter and oh god. Yeah, I mean, I think compared to the other episode in the series, it's probably down there as one of the weaker ones. But having said that, I still think it's a fairly good story. There's good moments in it, and it kind of, for me, it has that thing about the Doctor of Hope and hope prevailing. The 30th Doctor giving all these speeches and things about hope and stuff like that, and that's a vital moment, I think, for her character, and in terms of the whole series, that idea of hope and kind of what she stands for, I think, I mean, it's a bit of a filler episode, perhaps, halfway through the series, but I think it serves its purpose, and perhaps there's more to it, I think, than people realize. I think people are quite quick to dismiss it, really. Yeah. People
call it like one of the worst episodes in the last 10 years, and that's just horrible. And
I don't think
it's that bad. I get that it is kind of a filler episode. I mean, it does have it is very much like the Doctor running down corridors for 50 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like that's all there is to it. But I think that there's a lot of really good stuff about it, and I'm gonna just mention two of my favorite things about it and move on, because I know that I really love it. No one else seems to really love it, but I love the early on when they first get to like the hospital, the ambulance ship, and the Doctor is like running around and like sabotaging computers and like we have to go back. I get the TARDIS, and the not the doctor, but the doctor character that's there is like, you need to settle down. You're being really like rude right now, and you're damaging our systems. And I thought that was a really like, and she admits and she goes, "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm being like horrible right now." I thought that was a really interesting moment. We've never seen, at least in New Who that I can think of, we've never seen the doctor be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm wrong." You know what I mean?
I agree.
That's fascinating.
Absolutely. I think that first sequence when they're on the ship, because I remember people saying at the time that, oh, it's so obvious that they're on a ship and not a planet or whatever, and that's a stupid plot twist. But it's not really, because if you hadn't seen the pre-publicity stuff for the episode, you wouldn't know that. Right. And as you say, the stuff with the Doctor admitting she's sorry, she kind of goes down that road, and she behaves out of character, and it's a really interesting thing to do. It reminds me of Sherlock in The Lying Detective. It's that kind of thing where there's uncertainty there about, and it's an interesting thing to do, because as you say, we don't really hear the Doctor say sorry that often or admit that she's wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting to take a character with so much like gravitas and smarts and importance and kind of bring them down to a level of being like, because that's I think that Jodie is very much the most human Doctor maybe ever. Like she's very like, I mean, she has some awkward moments and things like that, kind of Matt Smithy moments, but she's also very like, she really wants to connect with other humans. Like she really wants to be friends. I agree. She immediately calls the three companions, these are my new best friends. Like immediately, she just met them the other day, and they're her new best friends. I think that kind of stuff is really that could go in a really interesting direction in future seasons. Because if anything, like if one of the companions died or something like that, it wouldn't be like, Peter Davison, well, we wouldn't want to mourn him unnecessarily and then we move on. It could be like a really like,
that's an interesting
thing. It could be
an
episode long, kind of like with Capaldi, when Capaldi lost Clara, where it could be like a really like long mourning process because she's so connected to her friends. And I think that could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that moment shows how vulnerable she is, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe that's not the right word.
I think looking at the 13th Doctor as an incarnation separate to the others, as you say, it's that thing of how she is more human. She admits that she's vulnerable in ways that perhaps when the Doctor was vulnerable before, when he was a man, he might not have done. Like Capaldi probably would not have admitted that he was wrong if he was in that situation.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely think there's something there that's specific to Jodie's Doctor, and
I'd love to see Jodie meet Capaldi. So I think that would be a really interesting dynamic.
I suppose it could happen. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be really good. Yeah.
The other thing I like about Slerango Conundrum is the Pating. I think the Pating is really, really. I truly, the Pating might be my favorite villain of the series. And a lot of people hate the Pating. I think the Pating is great. We've never seen that on Doctor Who before. I think it's a really cool idea.
I can see why people don't like him, but at the same time, there's so much to love about him, I think, isn't there? Like, in terms of how he's a cute little creature, but also, I mean, just why not? Why not have the most deadly creature in the universe turn out to be a tiny little, vulnerable-looking, cute-looking, but very dangerous little thing? Yeah, absolutely. Why not? It's Doctor Who. Why not?
It's got this big. I remember the first time I watched it, and we see it for the first time, and we're like, what? Is that what we're worried about? And then it like yells at them, and it's got this like maw full of teeth, and you're like, and it like really like is kind of creepy. I don't know, it hit for me. I get why other people don't like it, but I like weird stuff like that, and I think
I agree.
I think it really worked. Now, the next episode was Demons of the Punjab, which I know you liked a lot from watching videos you've done.
Yes.
It didn't connect with me as it did for yourself and for a lot of other people. Let's talk about it. What did you love about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I don't think the first time I watched it, I kind of, maybe didn't get the gist of it as much, but I remember in that week just rewatching those final 5 or so minutes over and over again, because I think they're really, really strong. Just the whole thing. I think the confrontation between Prem and his brother, that's not something we get to see often in Doctor Who, like two brothers or family members actually going against each other and then one of them effectively or indirectly killing the other, and that's quite a dark thing. And then I suppose the impacts of that, on the Doctor and her friends watching on, and then what that means for Yaz as well and for her granny. I just think that's really interesting. And the music as well in that scene, the music that runs through right up until the Indian closing credits. I love that.
Yeah. That is what we're talking about. The music this series is superb.
Oh,
it's I mean, everyone's said that already, but Seigen Akinola deserves like so much, support and respect. He nailed it.
Absolute breath of fresh air. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my issue stemmed mainly from, and it sounds kind of pathetic, but it felt like there should have been some sort of like mystery going on. And it should have been a pure historical, which I know that's kind of judging the episode for what it isn't and not for what it is. But it felt like the addition, and I know their point and their relevance to the story, but it felt like the demons, I can't remember the
Thajarians.
Thajarians,
yeah.
Punjab Thajarians. I felt like their place in the story didn't feel relevant, but I haven't rewatched this episode since the week it aired, so I should go back and rewatch it, because I do remember really connecting to the kind of brothers with a dispute in ideologies and like how that plays out.
Yeah,
and that's interesting because I think that one of the worst things about the Serenga Conundrum, which aired just the week before, is the brother-sister plotline. I don't think that connects very well in that episode. Whereas the brother plotline in Demons, I think, works really well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, actually. An interesting comparison. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because Demons was the first episode not written exclusively... not written...
Oh, by Chris.
By Chris or with Chris. And I really felt... like, when I went into it, I was expecting something really, like, different. And it was still about kind of the character aspects and that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, this still kind of feels like a Chris Chibnall episode. But thinking back, it doesn't. It does things that Chris Chibnall episodes don't do. So I'm going to go back and rewatch it because I want to appreciate it because everyone else appreciates it and I didn't have an appreciation for it. Next was Kerblam, right?
Yes, it was. Yes. Because it's interesting when you've just noticed how Demons was the first one that wasn't written by Chris. And I think generally, looking at the series overall, I think, because we have these 4 episodes now, don't we, that aren't written by him at all. We have Demons, Kerblam, Which Finds and It Takes You Away. And I think overall they're probably some of the strongest of the season. Maybe the second half is a bit stronger overall. Yeah. With these guest writers, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I think we've not had a season where the first half is all, like, for example, the first half is all Stephen Moffat and then the second half is all other writers. And I think that was maybe a mistake. I'm sure he did that so that he could set up the tone, but I think it caused some sameness. Like, if it had gone Rosa and then follow that up with, I don't know, Kerblam or whatever, or I guess you have to do Arachnids though, because that's when they decide to
back to Earth, and then
yeah. Oh, it's kind of an inescapable trap.
I guess just because the series is so short, and you've got those first 4 episodes that are all about getting them home. That's like half the series already gone before they like become companions in earnest. So, I guess that's
how would
that's
it have
the issue,
been
isn't
if
it?
that was. How would it have been if that was the drive of the whole series of like, we're gonna get you home, and then by the end of the full series they get home? You know what I mean? That might have been more interesting. Because once they make that decision at the end of Arachnids, every episode after that is
it's like where do you go from here? I suppose, isn't it, a bit?
Right. Yeah.
Because obviously there's the thing with Graham and Ryan. Yaz, I mean, I like Yaz. I think she gets far too much stick, but she didn't have that much to do in terms of her character developing or anything. Yeah, that's interesting, actually. Yeah, that might have worked. I don't know if they could have sustained it that long, but it would have certainly been interesting to maybe explore that a bit more as a bigger thing, perhaps.
That might have provided more of a way to explore, like if Graham and Ryan are essentially trapped in adventures together. Do you know what I mean? Because Ryan has an animosity toward Graham, and Graham wants their friendship and their relationship. And I think that would have been interesting if, like, they're kind of stuck in the situation of we have to travel week to week. But I don't know. That's speculation. Anyway, Kerblam has really good robots and a really good setting.
Best bit of it, yeah.
I have a big problem with some of the ideologies expressed in the episode. I think it's got a misplaced message. It's a bit Kill the Mooney in that regard for me personally.
Okay, yeah.
But really, I mean, it's the guest cast is amazing in Kerblam. Like, every single guest actor is like one of the best guest actors I think we've had, at least in this series.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, I don't know. I think, as I say, these 4 episodes are some of the strongest of the series, but maybe in comparison to the others, Kablam does fall short a bit. I don't know why. I think, I mean, the robots are really great, and the setting and everything, and the world building. And it's got a fair plot twist at the end, I suppose. But yeah, it doesn't really have an overall message. I don't think Doctor Who should commit to like either side of the argument. I think it's nice how they don't commit. They just kind of leave it a bit ambiguous. But at the same time, I suppose it leaves you feeling, I don't know, a bit unsure at the end of the episode about what it was trying to say or whatever, or what the point of it was, or...
The villain turns out to be like a progressive millennial type of character, and is the bad guy, and the good guy is the big corporation. That's just not usually what we see from Doctor Who.
It's not. That's true.
But then the corporation says they're going to do what the bad guy said was right, so the bad guy kind of has a point. I don't know. It's a little mixed.
I get that. Yeah, it is.
But the point is, the robots are great.
Yeah, above all else, the robots are great. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, the little twirly trying to sales pitch the doctor on heart medication is just so funny. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
The Witchfinders has probably my favorite moment. I'm just gonna totally change subjects to the Witchfinders. The Witchfinders has probably my favorite moment in the series, and that is when the doctor is like hung up and is going to be tried as a witch, and has that conversation with Alan Cumming. I think that is, it's probably like Jodie's best performance so far. At least for me, it's probably Jodie's best performance so far.
Pretty much. I think I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really great moment. I think the episode overall is. I mean, it doesn't have like as explicit a kind of political agenda as the other historicals in the series, or like it's not focused on a celebrity historical character like Rosa Parks or anything like that, but it's a bit more comedic in tone perhaps, but it's still rich in ideas. It's got a lot to say, like about faith and stuff, and misguided faith or whatever, and the witches. It's really interesting, for Doctor Who to do a story about witches. It's another case of having a human villain, I suppose, isn't it? And like questioning morality and things like that.
Yeah.
I think as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the look of this episode as well. I think I really like the kind of autumnal, wintry trees and the mist, all that. I really love that kind of aesthetic. Yeah.
You recently visited the hill that this episode is set at, right?
Yes, I live about half an hour away from it. I've never been there before, but I went there recently. So that's a nice link as well. I've kind of got a bit of a bias, I suppose. But I do like the Witchfinders as well.
No, I do. Yeah,
just anyway.
I bring that up because they like it's a real. I haven't had the opportunity to go to the UK, but I like that a character who's from the UK, being Graham, has like he knows about the witch like trials and he's gone on like a tour. Like that's a piece of logical information that he would have. Do you know what I mean? That's a real like that kind of thing. I like. That gets scattered throughout the series. Like he knows how to drive a bus in Rosa because he was a bus
I really
driver,
like that. Yeah, that's a great detail.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ryan is good at like figuring out the manufacturing in Kerblam because he works in a factory. It's like stuff like that with the companions. Their little skills is kind of also in Kerblam. It's been memed a lot. Yaz kind of putting. I think it's Charlie in like a headlock and like bringing him down to the ground. You know what I'm talking about? Because she's a police officer, so she would know how to do combat like that. I think that kind of stuff is great, and I also love Alan Cumming in this episode.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Alan Cumming is
best guest star of the series, in my opinion. I think probably.
Best guest star ever. He's amazing.
Forever.
The way ever better than any others. No, but he is really good, and I kind of hope he comes back. I'd like to see.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be good.
More with James, because his little interaction with Ryan about how his parents were killed, and he was had this horrible upbringing and all that, and you can feel there's actual depth to him. Where like a lot of his performance is very comedic, but there is a layer of depth to him.
That's very true. Yeah.
more so than other, I think, like celebrity historical type of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a really good
because on the subject of sequels and stuff, I mean, do you think there are any stories from this series that they could revisit again? You know, because I've heard a few people, I think, say that kind of thing. You know, they could have King James back, or they could go to Kandoka from Kablam, or I'm trying to think of other examples, but there have been a few things of that, you know, worlds that they could visit again, perhaps, I suppose, haven't there?
I'd love to see, I can't think of the actor or character's name, but the guy in charge of the race in the Ghost Monument. I'd love to see another story with him as like the main villain.
Yeah.
Ilan, yeah.
Yeah, because there were so many worlds set up in this series, I suppose, and you know, there are places to explore that haven't been explored yet, and I hope they, I hope they go there and do some of that, because that would be cool to tie it back to Series 11, I suppose, wouldn't it?
Yeah. They kind of set up those three characters, Ilan, Angstrom, and Epso.
Yes,
are all humanoid and very like human looking, but they're not from Earth. They're not from the future. You know what I mean? They are aliens. It's almost like Star Wars style instead of Star Trek style of like future humans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to explore, like, I don't know. It'd be cool to get into. Like, they have the little line where like, we never even heard of human beings. You know what I mean? And it'd be interesting to explore like a society that is human like, but is fully alien. Do you know what I mean? I just think that would be interesting.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, because all the stories this series were so standalone. Like, the only returning thing within the series was Tim Shaw at the end, which, you know, yeah,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, but I think it would be good now that they've set up these worlds to bring back some stuff from them and to start experimenting a bit more, so that the stories in Series 12 aren't just more of the same kind of standalone stuff. You know, if we go back and have some sequels maybe, or I don't know, explore some of those other things that were set up, that would be really cool, I think. Yeah.
You know what would be another good one is seeing the Ux traveling. We're getting a little ahead, but seeing the Ux traveling with that captain. Do you know where they left at the end of the finale?
I mean, I think they should have had their own episode already. They could have been set up earlier in the series, because that was an interesting concept that was kind of glossed over a little bit, maybe. Yeah. The
one other thing about the Witchfinders that I thought of and I wanted to get back to, the scene where King James and Lady, I can't remember.
Becca Savage.
Becca Savage, that's it. They all turn on the Doctor and call her a witch, and they sort of peer pressure. I can't remember any character names, but the girl whose grandmother died earlier in the episode, they peer pressure her into going against the Doctor too, and she's like, was kind of weird when she said this, and I thought that I remember feeling like really like invested in that scene, like more than any other scene in the series before that. I felt very like, is the Doctor gonna get out of this? Like, it was the first time I felt real like really serious stakes, because it felt like, you know what I mean? Like, we know that this period of history was very dangerous, and I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, it was the first time that the Doctor had been challenged, really, because up to this point, we've not really seen impacts of her new gender, or just overall anyone kind of challenge her. I mean, a little bit in Stranger Conundrum, I suppose, when she says sorry and stuff. But yeah, it's nice to see her challenged, and to see the impact of her having, being a female in this time. And for it to be the Doctor that has to face that firsthand, that's interesting, because it's never happened before, obviously, in the history of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was handled really well. Like, it didn't dwell on. She didn't go. She did say several times, like, if I was a man, I could just get on with this and move on and fix the situation. But it's not handled in a way of like she's like, regretful that she's a woman now or anything like that. Like, it doesn't do anything problematic. It is strictly like, I'm a woman and I have to deal with this, so I'm going to get out of this situation. Like, they handle her being a woman in the witch trials incredibly well, which a lot of people were nervous about that, and I think that they nailed it.
I agree. Yeah.
Like, her gender was never an issue, like, at all, I think, throughout the series. Like, they never mishandled it. You know what I mean?
I mean, there are bits like that line you just mentioned about it would be so much easier for us as a man. There are things like that people have kind of taken out of context and gone, oh, it's a massive agenda or whatever. But I absolutely agree, it was not a problem at all. And yeah, I think overall that thing you said about her being more human, about her wanting to connect with people, I think the kind of the female gender, having that with the Doctor, has kind of allowed for a bit more of that, and for Jodie's, obviously for Jodie to take on the role and for an actress to give it a go. And that's been interesting to see, but yeah, there haven't been any problems. I think it's been handled really well. Yeah.
The one thing I'd like to see them do, and I've heard people say that, well, maybe they're not doing this because she's a woman and they don't want to show a woman acting this way because it might be taken as offensive. But I want to see her get really, really emotional about something. Like, I want to see her get really, really like dark and angry. I think of Matt Smith in A Good Man Goes to War when he's talking about why he has so many rules, why he needs a bunch of rules because he's not a good man. And I think that doing something like that with Jodie, like showing a dark kind of side to her nature and her getting really another Matt Smith moment when he's like banging on the Dalek in Victory of the Daleks, and he like really shows like the rage of him. Now granted, that was coming off of still post Time War stuff because it was only series 5. And we had just gone through all that with, David Tennant and stuff. So I get that was more relevant to that period, but I still think that is in the Doctor. Or I guess I want that to be in the Doctor. I don't know if maybe Chris Chibnall wants to write that in the Doctor right now, which is fine. You can do whatever you want with the show. But that's the only thing I'd like to see more from Jodie. Other than that, I think she's pretty much nailing it.
I think there's definitely potential for her to be challenged more in Series 12, and I'd really like to see the relationships between her and the companions challenged as well. Have a Doctor Light episode or a companion Light episode where there's one of them missing, or two, or even all three of them, and it's just the Doctor by herself, Heaven Sent style or whatever. Just do more to experiment with those dynamics, and if they fell out with each other or something could happen, or as you said, if one of them dies, or I don't know, if one of them. There's so many things they could do, and I think with Series 11 they've sort of been holding back a little bit in that respect, but playing it safe, I suppose. But with Series 12, I definitely think they could challenge those dynamics a bit more and go to some darker places or more kind of uncomfortable places for those characters, really, couldn't they? Yeah.
I completely agree. I heard a rumor, that Chris Chibnall had more like ideas like that kind of thing that he wanted to do, but this was more of an experiment for the BBC. Like they were testing out a new showrunner, a new Doctor, new ideas for the show, like a female Doctor. So they didn't give him full creative control. Now I don't know if that's true, but if it is, it'd be interesting to see what he does, and that's why they had to delay the series a few months into 2020. Because he wanted to like go back and add more ideas and have a little more control over it. And I kind of hope that's true, because I want to see if that's true. They didn't have like complete creative control over the series. I want to see what he can do with it. Because when you look at Broadchurch, like the ringer that he puts some of those characters through, you know what I mean? I think of David Bradley's character, which is just like so sympathetic and horrible. Obviously they wouldn't go something that dark with Doctor Who. But it'd be interesting to see, like, I don't know, Ryan and Yaz have a falling out, and so the Doctor goes on an adventure with one, not the other, or something like that. Like, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, it's a funny one, because I think overall with this series, with this new era, there's this massive focus on, like, on friendship and just in general, like, positive vibes and stuff. So I don't know how dark Chris would take it, but as you say, with Broadchurch, I mean, pretty much every character is, like, morally ambiguous in some way, or, like, corrupt or whatever, and... I think, bring a little bit of that to, well, I don't know. I mean, the regulars, the companions, the Doctor, they need to be good characters overall, good people, but to have a bit of that thrown in, I think, would just make things more interesting to watch and, like, more interesting dramatically, really.
Even though it came out of nowhere and felt kind of not like it was true to what happened at the end of the previous episode. We kind of see that a little with Graham.
Yes.
Graham being like, yo, if I see him, I'm going to kill him. Yeah. And that was a little, But it's interesting, the Doctor being like, well, if you do that, you can't travel with me. And it'd be interesting to see more of that kind of, like, the Doctor disagreeing with one of her companions.
Yeah, absolutely.
All,
that's what I think, too. So we got hints to it in the finale. We had that with Graham, and then we had with Ryan the thing about guns, and the Doctor's like, oh, I'm going to give you all weapons, and Ryan's like, oh, but you told me off for using a gun. And it doesn't go anywhere beyond that, but those moments I'd love to see developed, and the whole thing with Graham as well. It's an interesting thing to do with the character, but it's just, as you say, it doesn't ring true with how that character's been set up prior to that, and it jars for me. But it's an interesting thing to do, and if that had been set up well, potentially that could have been a really interesting thing. But he's not going to shoot him, sure, because it's Graham, and it's just
it's ridiculous. He's literally a bus driver. Like it's like he's not ever going to murder someone. I didn't believe that he would. I was there for the journey. I think it gave a nice kind of emotional string to that episode.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel... Okay, so I want to talk about It Takes You Away, because that's my favorite episode of these 11 that we've got. I love It Takes You Away. I think It Takes You Away is the most... I don't know if thematic is the right word, or like metaphorical. Like, I think it's the episode that is the most about something, where like it actually has a lot of meaning behind it. When I first watched it, I was like, I didn't know what to take from it. All I know is I liked it, and as I've revisited it and thought about it, I think it's really special. It really it really means a lot to me as an episode. I think that that you could say that the frog is weird, and the frog is weird. The frog is definitely weird.
Frog is,
but it's. I mean, you've talked in videos about how the frog shows up in The Woman Who Fell to Earth a bunch. Which is
yes.
It's on like the side table.
It's the true series story arc, the frog.
Yeah, the frog.
Oh gosh.
But the solid tracks had to be something, and I heard people say, well, why wasn't it someone the Doctor cared about, like Susan? And that wasn't the point. It didn't need to be someone the Doctor cared about, because it wanted the Doctor it didn't want to trick the Doctor. It wanted to like genuinely be friends with the Doctor, which is such a weird out there sci-fi concept of like a sentient alternate universe wants to be friends with the Doctor. That's the kind of thing that I could see like Big Finish doing, or the comics doing. You know what I mean? Like, that's a really kind of crazy idea. True. To see that in the series, I think, is fascinating, and you can only do so much on a TV budget at the end of the series. I think they did really well, and the production design, aside from the white space and the frog with that cabin, I think is really good. The anti-zone's okay. It's a little too dark. You can't really see anything. What did you think of It Takes You Away? Sorry, I'm gushing because I love it.
It's interesting that thing you just said about the solid track not wanting to trick the Doctor if it had been Susan or whatever, because that hadn't really occurred to me. But I suppose you're right. It has to kind of strip itself back and just present itself as it is and say, look, I just want to be friends with you. If it had been Susan or like River or someone else, it would have just been trying to deceive the Doctor. And that's wrong. So that's interesting that you pointed that out. Overall, I think I pretty much agree with you. I think it is a special episode. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot to it, a lot of meaning behind it, a lot that you can take away from it. I do think it's flawed in some areas, but it's probably, like, out of all the episodes, it's one of the ones that had the most impact on me. One of the ones that I've kind of thought about in my head the most, and it stays with you, I think. And it's very kind of bizarre, very weird, very strange, very, I don't know. The whole parallel world thing, I think that is handled really well. And like the moment where first Eric's wife appears and then Grace, and it's just like, it's a really interesting thing to do dramatically, like bringing Grace back. No, I think they used the parallel world really well to kind of take those characters to an interesting place and do interesting stuff with them. And it's like a journey to a parallel world. This episode, it's just like a journey to another world, and then they come back, and it's kind of the same for us as viewers. I think we watch the episode and then we come out of it, and I think it stays with you. There's something about it that's just I don't know how to put it into words, but
it's a bit of a roller coaster ride, because you start out and it seems like it's a base under siege, but it's more of a house under siege, and there's monsters in the woods, and then all of a sudden the mirror stops reflecting Graham, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then Graham goes and he can like almost put his hand in the mirror, and you're like, wait, what? And then they're going into the mirror, and there's like a weird like Lovecraftian alternate world, and there's a guy with like a kind of scarred, weird alien face, and he's like, I'm gonna give you a balloon, and it's like really, it just goes crazy from there. And then there's like an emotional thing on the other side. I just think it's very interesting how it's structured, where it kind of bait and switches you, then switches again, then switches again.
Out of all the episodes, I
really
think it's probably the most kind of unpredictable, really, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people up to this point have been saying, oh, the stories are a bit samey or a bit cliched or predictable or whatever. You know, give us something that's a real roller coaster ride that's got twists and turns, and this definitely delivers on that front. As a kind of, you know, penultimate episode for the series, gearing things up a bit, you know, and it's making things more interesting and what have you. And crazy. That's a good word to describe it, I think. It's a weird one, but it's definitely one that stays with you, I think. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It does have issues. There's some lines in it that feel out of place. One that really sticks to my mind is when Yaz goes, why don't you just reverse the polarity of the neutron flow? And it's like, why would Yaz ever say that? Like, that doesn't...
I mean, but I don't mind that much, but I think if it had been set up, if she'd seen the Doctor saying that in a previous episode, it would have
that's what it
grounded it a bit more, and, you know, for people like you or whoever, just make it a bit more believable. But I get what you mean.
It's a cute reference, you know, but I think that I love the Third Doctor era. That's one of my top 3 eras of Doctor Who. I get referencing it. It's a very popular era, but we've seen the reverse the polarity joke a lot in New Who. It makes more sense when the Doctor does it. My favorite, just a quick tangent, my favorite reverse the polarity gag is when David Tennant and Matt Smith are reversing the polarity and reversing it back again.
Oh, sonic screwdrivers. Yeah.
That's really funny. I'm reversing it, you're reversing it back again. We're confusing the polarity. Anyway.
Yeah, brilliant moment.
Yeah, I think It Takes Two Ways very good. We talked about the finale a bit. I think it's
I mean, the more I think about it, you know, the more I think maybe it wasn't that bad, but it's just, for me, it's kind of wasted potential. There's interesting ideas in it, like the Ux, like Graham turning rogue, bringing Team Shaw back, but he didn't get to do much. I don't know. I think they could have done more with it. I mean, as a Doctor Who episode, it's probably not that bad, but as a finale, it just doesn't. It doesn't deliver, does it?
It doesn't, and I think that's where Resolution kind of picked up some of that. Because I have actually a lot of problems with Resolution, but as a finale type of story, even though I know it's a special, but as kind of like an end to this chunk of episodes, I think it's really good that it happened. Because if we had been waiting for a whole year after the Battle of Ranskorev Kolos, that would have been a little rough.
Yeah.
Having Resolution is a nice pill.
Yeah, true.
I want to, before we get into the actual talking about Resolution, how do you feel about some episodes not having the opening titles?
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, a mixed feeling. I mean, I get why they do it, and I don't mind it when they don't do it, but it's like, give us a warning if you're going to do it or not, otherwise I'm waiting for like the opening titles throughout the whole of the first 10 minutes, and it's like, are they going to appear or not?
Is this a pre-titles? What's going on? Yeah, I know exactly.
But then I suppose that has, on the other hand, that has the effect of like drawing you in, hooking you in, keeping you watching. So maybe it's, you know, that's okay in that respect. Yeah, I think because in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, it's the new era is only just beginning, so actually I think it's quite a wise decision to hold back the opening titles, because they're part of the redesign. It's like the TARDIS being held back for the Ghost Monument. You know, save that to episode 2. Why not? Because there's so much else to introduce in the first episode of a new era. In Resolution, I don't know really.
I think I forgive it in Woman Who Fell to Earth, because that episode very much felt like a movie to me. Like the way it's structured is very cinematic, like the way the story is structured. And you've got that moment where the Doctor crashes through the top of the train, and she stands up, and you hear bum ba dum bum ba dum. You know what I mean? Like you hear that as part of the score. Yeah. So it kind of does have opening titles, but in a more movie-y way. And so I kind of forgive it there. Resolution, it felt, I guess, more gimmicky. It felt like, oh, we're making it, you know, we're taking it more seriously or whatever. I don't know. it really bothered me, I think, just because I'm a nerd and I want to see the opening titles. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want to see them.
It might have worked better as a one-off just for that first episode, I think. I think people would have taken less offence, perhaps, because there's no real reason why they couldn't have included it in Resolution. I think one thing I heard is that maybe it's to do with for timing reasons. So they're like, oh, I've got 60 minutes. The titles are like 30 seconds. 30 seconds that we could be having something else, so let's just get rid of the titles. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but...
Cut out 30 seconds of the Ryan and his dad diner scene. So we can get the opening titles back.
Yeah, they could have done that, yeah.
It's like a 10-minute scene.
Yeah.
No, there's things I don't want to rail on it because I already made a whole video where I basically just kind of ranted about how I don't like it. Not horribly, but I was just kind of disappointed by it. There is stuff I really like about it. I love basically everything with the Dalek. Like, I didn't at first watch, but as I thought about it, I'm like, I basically like everything they did with the Dalek because they didn't just do a Dalek, but they did kind of a unique thing on it, which bothered me when I first watched it, because I was like, well, if you're reintroducing the Daleks, just keep it basic. But now I'm kind of like, well, as a fan, if it had literally just been the Doctor chasing a normal Dalek through Sheffield, that probably would have been kind of boring. So having it attached to, was it Liv?
Lynn.
Yeah. Having it attached to her and kind of puppet her, and then have it in kind of a rusty casing, having it be a recon Dalek that kind of reacts to things in a different way than a normal Dalek would, I think makes it more interesting, at least for long-term viewers. I don't know how well it resonated for new viewers, people who this is their 11th episode ever of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But I'd be interesting to talk to someone like that, though.
Yeah, I think it kind of reintroduces the Daleks in a way that we haven't seen them before, and I mean, as a new viewer, I think it's interesting because it kind of works. It works for fans and new viewers, I think, because it's like, okay, this is a squid thing. Is it a Dalek? You know, what is it? Is this a Dalek? Is it a new thing?
Right.
Yeah. And they kind of hold that back, and they have that moment. I mean, as fans, we all knew it was going to be a Dalek, like pretty much from like some point last year. But I think as a new viewer watching that, it's quite clever the way that they do it, because obviously there is that kind of info dump about, you know, it's Dalek and it's something from the show's past, but they kind of treat it as a new monster, and they introduce it, and they take time to introduce it, almost like another kind of Genesis story for this particular Dalek. So I think that's a wise move to do that, I think.
Yeah, if this was your 11th episode ever of Doctor Who, like you had only seen 11 and the 11th one was Resolution, the moment where Jodie says, no, you guys go off, I have to confront the Daleks, with the Daleks it's personal, that would have been, I think, a moment that would have hit home really hard, because, you know, as fans, we've seen the Doctor confront Daleks and Cybermen and, you know, Centaurans and all these villains that, you know, they've seen throughout their entire lives, but this is the first villain that Jodie has faced that she knew before in a previous lifetime. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so that is really interesting. It's interesting to see her in that position, and I think it'd be interesting for a new viewer to see, like, oh, she knows this one already. You know what I mean? Like, she's already like got a history with this race, and so when she goes, mate, I'm the Doctor, and it like freaks out and tries to kill her immediately, I think that moment would hit home even stronger if this was your first time with the Daleks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I think now as well, everyone's kind of saying and thinking, you know, are they going to do more of this in Series 12, bringing back more old monsters? I mean, we've had the Daleks, that's the big one, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to see if there are any other monsters they could bring back that would have the same effect or a similar effect on the Doctor in terms of her character and stuff. Because I think even here with the Dalek, I mean, they could maybe made a little bit more of it. You know, the Doctor's first meeting with the Dalek. I mean, maybe it's just Jodie's Doctor, different to the rest, different way of doing it, different way of playing the role. But I don't know. The first meeting between them doesn't quite have the same gravitas, I'd say, as, I mean, maybe this is something that will improve on hindsight, you know, but yeah, I don't know. There is that thing about it being personal with them, but at the same time, I think they could have milked it a little bit more, perhaps.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. When you compare it to like Chris Eccleston's scene with the Dalek.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
I already talked about Matt Smith's scene with the Dalek. You've got a lot of or even like Tom Baker, like going back super far, Tom Baker's first Dalek story with the Genesis of the Daleks, that has so much weight to it because of the previous Dalek stories. This just feels like I know what the Daleks are. I don't know. I see what you mean. There isn't the same weight to it as with previous Dr. Dalek first meetings. And another thing that I think, I hope I didn't talk over you, by the way. If you had something else to say,
I don't think so. No.
I think another thing that this episode, I'm conflicted on if it gets it right or wrong. Like, it does the thing of there's one Dalek, which we've seen done, a couple times before, kind of with Into the Dalek and very much so with Dalek. But the difference with those stories is they're very much on a base, so they're indoors. Whereas in this story, the Dalek is out and about, like it's like running around outside. It attacks an army base. You know what I mean? Like it's not like in Rob Shearman's Dalek. It's not trapped in an underground facility and they have to stop it from getting out because if it gets out, it'll kill everyone. This Dalek's out, and I think that's interesting because I don't think we've had that relationship with like, if we don't stop it, it's just going to keep killing, as opposed to if we don't stop it, it'll get out and start killing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
there's a difference there between it being indoors and outdoors. But I think that also creates a problem because when you're watching it, you're like, I don't know. It feels like it doesn't. I love the scene where it kind of eviscerates an army. I think that's a really good Dalek extermination scene.
Oh yeah.
But it feels like there should be, I guess, more of that. I don't know. It does have a very high death count, but I didn't feel the stakes of it personally. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
It's interesting you say that, and like looking back now, like why does the Dalek go to the army base? Like in terms of the narrative logic, the story logic, why does he do that? I don't know. I mean,
is that outside the like satellite facility, the dish facility? I don't know.
I think it's meant to be a different place, but I suppose it could just be en route or whatever. I mean, it's an awesome scene, and I wouldn't want to lose that from the story. But yeah, that's interesting how you say that about it being like outdoors, more open, more free. Maybe is some of the threat lost? I don't know. Does he try and like get a Dalek fleet or something towards the end? Is that what he does?
He tries to send a signal to get a Dalek fleet to come invade Earth, which is good stakes. And I get that that's what a recon Dalek would do, as opposed to like the Dalek from Dalek, didn't have an army to call, so it would just go kill people. So I get that there's a difference there, a difference in the mission. But I don't know. I think that this episode, it's a very, I'm conflicted on it because it's a really like entertaining piece of Doctor Who, but I think it's comparable. This is why I think it's more of the season finale. It's comparable to like Russell finales where there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of elements that feel, some of them feel out of place. There's like tonal inconsistencies where like the Dalek kills someone and then we cut to like a family at New Year's where their Wi-Fi is down. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of weird balancing of tones is very much like Russell's finales were.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I think it's there's stuff to complain about with it, but it's a very good episode and it's nice to see the Daleks. You know what I mean? I'm kind of conflicted on it.
Yeah.
I wish I liked it more. That's my big thing. Like, I thought I was going to adore it, and I just kind of like, oh, I liked it. You know what I mean? And that's me being really, really entitled, but for whatever reason, that was my take.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't think it's my favourite of the series overall. Yeah, there are a few things wrong with it, and I don't know. It's not. I mean, it's very epic in scale. It's very cinematic. It's got a Dalek in it and all that stuff. But yeah, I think I get what you mean about it kind of lacking in some areas, maybe a little bit, and how it could feel a bit underwhelming or whatever. I guess, yeah.
This season, as a whole, had like really scaled back threats and scaled back stakes. At the end of the first series of the modern show, Chris Eccleston faces off an entire Dalek fleet. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have anything like that this series. There's nothing to that, at least that I can think of. There's nothing to that scale. Whereas the closest that they get is, the Ux and Tim Shaw trying to destroy the Earth. But other than that, the stakes are very much like interpersonal, and like we're like, if you think about I mistook the stakes of It Takes You Away on first viewing. I thought that the universe was at stake. I thought like if they stayed in the Solitrack universe, our universe would be destroyed. But on a rewatch, I don't think that's the case. I think it just would have killed the people in the Solitrack universe and the Solitrack universe. Like, I don't think that there was anything at stake other than the characters in the story, which is an interesting change, because that's different than how Doctor Who has been basically all for the last, what is it, 14 years?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it always has to be character focused to work, but at the same time, I don't know, you have to have that. Yeah, you have to have that scale to it as well. 'Cause that comment you just made me think about, compared to the series 1 finale, say, when you've got all those Daleks together. The only time I think we've seen like more than 1 or 2 monsters on screen together is like with the Kablam men, when they're like the terracotta army, and like the spiders as well. And like every other monster pretty much has been like a one-off or a villain. Like even with the Stenza, we only get to see one of them. It's same prosthetic, it saves money, whatever. But because I think with the finale and then with Resolution, you've got just one single villain or monster, which is fine, but it would be nice to have a story where there's like multiple Daleks or multiple Stenza or multiple whatever, just to give it a sense, more of a sense of scale, perhaps. Because those stories do have scale, like in terms of the CGI, or in a sense they feel like big stories, or the space setting or whatever, or the whole of the setting in Resolution, where it's all global and stuff. But maybe seeing more monsters on screen at once is the answer, because we've had so many kind of one-off monsters, haven't we?
I think another thing it could use is like a big return, and they tried to do that with Tim Shaw, and I don't think it worked. But like a big, like in I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole, because this is something that I really think the series has a problem with. If you look back at previous series, mid-series they set something up and then pay it off in the finale. Yeah. So like in series 1, they set up Dalek, and then at the end they pay off that with a whole fleet of Daleks. And then in series 2 they set up Cybermen in the middle, and at the end pay that off with a whole army of Cybermen. In series 3 they do it a little differently. They set up that a Time Lord can turn into a human, and at the end they reveal there's another Time Lord disguised as a human. You know what I mean? They do that kind of every series. They do something. They do. You could go through every series and kind of pull that out. They don't really do that with this series. They try with bringing back Tim Shaw in the finale, but I think where they mess up is Tim Shaw doesn't leave a lasting impression from the woman who fell to Earth.
No.
You've mentioned before, I think, that Grace never really never meets Tim Shaw. You know what I mean? If Tim Shaw had directly like murdered Grace,
absolutely,
his return would have felt like, oh, it's the guy that murdered Grace. You know what I mean?
He teleports off in the Woman Who Fell to Earth before she even dies. He doesn't even know that she's died. So that just to me feels like a bit of an inconsistency there.
As you rot in this stasis tunnel, think of Grace. Who's Grace? What are you talking about?
That should have happened. There should have been a moment where he goes, "Who is Grace? Wait a minute. Hold on.
Grace?
Why are you trying to kill me, Graham?" I mean, that might have been interesting. But I get what you mean about setting stuff up mid-series as well, because the stories have been so standalone. The only returning, Tim Shaw's like the only returning thing, and then you got the thread of the regulars, and more specifically Ryan and Graham and their relationship through the series. But that's it. The stories could be told in pretty much any order, I suppose. Some of them, there's no like direction for the series, no real sense of impetus, like it's heading somewhere. To me, I mean, I think it takes you away, kind of raises the stakes a bit, and it feels really weird and experimental. It's like, oh my god, has me on the edge of my seat, and then the finale kind of falls flat, and it's just, I think it would have worked better if there was more of a sense of impetus, more of a sense of going somewhere. And that would have helped, increase the scale of everything as well. But instead, it just kind of rattles along, and then you get to the end, and it's like, oh, okay, that's the end of the series.
Yeah. Oh, it's over now. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a theory going on as the episodes were airing that, it seems like every episode a villain gets away. And there was a theory going on that in the finale, every villain would be back. You know what I mean? Chris Noth would have an army of spiders, and the Pating would be, making a menace, and like every villain that we've seen so far would come back. And, obviously by the time of Kerblam, that kind of gets thrown out the window. But that something like that would have been interesting, because we've never seen, well, I guess kind of at the end of Series 5. But that would have been interesting to have the villains just of this series all come back in one big episode at the end. You know what I mean? Like, okay, total fan theory here. But if Tim Shaw had, like, gone back through somehow the Doctor's timeline and gone to, like, each of her adventures and collected, I guess, the villain that she faced in that episode.
Yeah.
And then kind of, like, that would have been really interesting. Do you know what I mean? Like, something like that would have, I think... There's a lot of ways I think you could improve this series, and a lot of it hinges on the finale being a little more interesting. Like, honestly, I think that kind of comes down to...
Yeah, to me, there just wasn't enough set up. Like, I mean, Tim Shaw, okay, but, like, did people really want him back? Were they expecting it? Or, I don't know, does it have the impact they wanted it to have? And the thing with Graham wanting to kill him as well, that was not set up. Felt out of character, felt jarring. Yeah, the finale in many ways just was kind of another episode, and then, as we said, the series just ends. I agree. And I think definitely if there'd been more of a sense of direction throughout the series, as if it was heading somewhere, heading to a big return or a big whatever, that would have helped, I think.
So is that what you'd like to see going forward, like in Series 12? Would you like to see something more akin to a story arc or something like that?
I think so, yeah. Because, like, if you look back at Broadchurch, there's even quotes of Chris saying this in interviews, before Series 11 was made, back in 2016, 2017, and, people saying to him, is there the possibility there could be an overall story or whatever in the series? And Chris said, yeah, we want to be bold and risky, and that's what the BBC wants, and it feels like they've held it back a little bit, but I think now that they have tested the waters, and now they've got Series 12, I feel like they could go in a slightly different direction. I mean, if you look back at Series 6 or Series 9, which are the second series for Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi, they are both quite different in terms of format or style or whatever to the series that came before. And, I just think I hope they'll try something different and just do something different to Series 11, take it in a slightly different direction, just to make it a bit more interesting, and whether that be through changing the format somehow, or I don't know, the way the stories are told, having more of a story arc, whatever, just something,
I wouldn't want this to happen forever going forward for every series in the future, but I think it would be, sorry if you can hear my dog barking, by the way, I think it would be interesting to do just once, just for one series. I'd be open to the idea of, like, Trial of the Time Lord style, it's a 10-part story, and like every episode is called, whatever part 1, whatever part 2, and so on throughout the whole thing. I think you could, again, I don't want them to do that every series, but just once, it'd be interesting to see New Who do that, to like have a really long, because there's other quotes of Chris Chibnall talking about how in the era of Netflix as a TV maker, we need to kind of, you know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to see Doctor Who experiment with something like that, and like you said, at least for the last 2 Doctors, I think you can make an argument for Series 3 as well. The second season of each Doctor feels very different, and then the third series of each Doctor feels kind of quintessential to that Doctor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the first season's an introduction, the second season is experimental, and the third season's kind of quintessential.
Yeah.
And I think that it'd be cool to see that happen with Jodie, and I think that you could do a lot with her second season to make it really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So I want to see that. Well, thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
For joining me. Do you want to plug your channel and Twitter and stuff?
Yeah. So if you look me up on YouTube, I'm just Richard Lloyd. Do Doctor Who.
There'll be a link in the description.
Reviews, discussions, that kind of stuff. On Twitter, I am at Stetson Doctor, after the Doctors. Stetson from back in the Matt Smith era.
Beautiful Stetson. Check out Richard Lloyd. His stuff is absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
He's probably one of the first Who-tubers I actually ever got into. Like it kind of went 5 Who fans, you. Like that's how I remember kind of going through it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it means a lot to me that you were here. And yeah, I really appreciate you making a video with me. Thanks for talking Series 11 with me.
No, it's been good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Oh, I have a Twitter and a podcast too, but whatever. You already know. You're already here. Okay, bye.
Bye.